Well, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for joining me for this important announcement and report today. I'm delighted to be with Secretary Mike Preston, our Secretary of Commerce, Secretary Becky Keogh of our Energy and Environment, and then we have members of the Council on Future Mobility that's joined us as well. We have Jennifer McKeon, who's the Senior Vice President of Walmart. We also have Bethany Duncan, that's here with AEDC. Jason Morrison, Chancellor of SAU. Where's Jason? Oh, good. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Morrison. And then we have John Bethel, Director of Public Affairs at Entergy, and Jason Schaefer, Vice President, Last Mile Strategy for Walmart. And there's many other members of the council that have been active, worked hard on this, that are not here today, but I wanted to recognize those members of the council that is here. And I want to give special thanks to Cyrus Sagari, who is to my right. He is co-founder of Up Partners, and he's chairman of the council and has worked very hard over the last 6-8 months in pursuing the opportunities that Arkansas has in future mobility. The council also includes, as I mentioned, members from Canoe, J.B. Hunt, Entergy, the Trucking Association, and the Auto Dealers Association, as well as multiple universities and state agencies. When we decided to embark on this exciting adventure almost 10 months ago, many people were thinking, why Arkansas future mobility? And of course, my answer was simple, that Arkansas has always been a leader in transportation and mobility, from our incredible logistics companies to our work in the electric vehicle space to the movement of goods across the globe. Arkansas not only is good at making things, we're good at moving things. And we want to stay in the forefront, and that is the reason for this council. And I choose the word mobility instead of transportation for a reason. Mobility is a broader term that looks at the future, that includes new modes of movement of goods and people from one place to another. And I'm very excited about what has happened even since this council was created. Even beyond the creation of this council, we have seen results. In March of this year, we entered into a bipartisan 3-state partnership with Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana to establish a regional hydrogen hub for development, production of use of clean hydrogen as fuel and manufacturing feedstock. In June, Bentonville hosted, with Cyrus Sagari, the Up Summit to bring together global leaders in future mobility. And in that same month, I signed an MOU with the Israeli Innovation Authority, allowing us to work more closely on a country that has led in innovation and investment in innovation. The next month in July, the University of Arkansas announced a Smart Mobility Alliance, and I attended the Farnborough Air Show in London, marketing our aero defense industry in this state that is so important. And just recently, Arkansas was ranked second in the nation for drone commerce readiness. And that's a ranking that I think surprises a few people, but not those legislators that are here that have worked on this. And also was pleased in August to join Governor Kevin Stitt of Oklahoma to sign an advanced mobility MOU to enhance the region's capabilities for innovation, particularly in the EV space. And so we've accomplished a great deal, but there is more to do. And I have read the report that Cyrus is going to present to you. And let me just assure you, as I mentioned to some legislators, that there's some bold ideas here. I hope that you will embrace them. It's up to you. You carry the ball now, and I want to recognize we have senators here, we have representatives here, and thank you for being here, each of you. And we hope that you will receive this report with some enthusiasm and with a look to the future and said, this is what Arkansas can be and what we can lead in. And so with that, I want to recognize Cyrus Sagari, the chairman of the Future Mobility Council. He's done extraordinary work with this, and Cyrus was chosen because he is an aviator, a very accomplished aviator. He is a business entrepreneur, and he loves Arkansas. And I'm proud of what he's done in this. And with that, I wanted to recognize Cyrus Sagari for his report.
Thank you very much, Governor.
Thank you, Cyrus.
Here is the report, the formal handover to you. On behalf of the entire Future Mobility Council, we appreciate your trust, and we look forward to seeing these things turn to action.
It's heavy.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Governor, for your trust and vision for the Future Mobility Council to come together to start really thinking about what a new future looks like, not only for the state, but for the region, perhaps for the entire country. As this concept of mobility really is, it's the underlying fabric of society. Transportation logistics is a $10 trillion industry. It's one of the largest industries in the world. And as the governor said, the state has been leading in that capacity for some time. If we can start to run some of the slides, we'll just go through some of the highlights and talk through some of the big recommendations that came out of the work that we've done with the governor. So the governor just walked through the timeline. He asked us to come together to start working as a team from private, public, academia, policymakers to really think about mobility broadly, from land, air, sea, and space, to think about what's an ecosystem that's needed to really support this incredible future. So we've been moving quick. There's been a lot that's gone on, as the governor hit, in terms of specific and measurable outcomes between the MOUs with Israel and Oklahoma and Louisiana and all the other neighboring states. It's been quite the ride. We've been able to break down our recommendations into 6 major categories. And you can see this flywheel here, where it starts off with investment to workforce development and academia, create an organizational structure to support this sort of global movement, community, event, and storytelling. We can do all the work in the world, but if we don't tell people about it, it doesn't really do any good. Then to cross-state initiatives, and this whole idea that rising tides lifts all boats, and working closely with our neighboring states. And then at the end there, advanced mobility policy, working with the legislators to really come up with what we believe to be groundbreaking policy that in some cases is the first in the world to be able to come together as a cohesive unit. So within the report, we kind of dive into a lot of details within all that, but to kind of just step back, again, what is advanced mobility? It's thinking about electrification, it's thinking about drone delivery, it's thinking about flying cars, about 400 companies developing some sort of flying car. It's the new space economy. That's about to be about $1 trillion economy that the state today, the largest export is aerospace and defense. And so how do we continue to take advantage of these big tailwinds and from an economic development perspective, academia perspective, workforce, so on and so forth. So let's talk about investment real quickly. And we'll start off with just a little bit of data. What you're seeing here in this chart is the amount of new investments made in the new world of future mobility over the last 10 years or so. It's exploded. It's kind of like what we saw on the internet in the early days of the 2000s. So a lot of global attention and activity around the future of mobility globally. And just give one little anecdote around a town not too far away from here called Wichita, Kansas. Many of you may know that Wichita is known as the air capital of the world. 7 out of 10 aircraft ever built in the history of humanity were built in Wichita, Kansas. Every large aircraft manufacturer in the world, for the most part, is in Wichita, Kansas. And as we started our analysis, we said, hey, how did Wichita become the air capital of the world? And it's very simple. Venture capital in the 1920s. This gentleman here, Jake Molendick, was the first aviation venture capitalist, and he invested in 3 guys, Clyde Cessna, Walter Beech, and Lloyd Stearman. Cessna Aircraft, Beechcraft, and Stearman, which became Boeing. This one investment kicked off an ecosystem that created 7 out of the 10 airplanes flying around the world today. And that goes to show what the power of early venture capital can be. And we think about this whole new ecosystem that we've got, we have an opportunity. If we look at mobility broadly from land, air, sea, and space, the state can take advantage of some of these lessons. And as the governor said back a few months ago, he signed the MOU with Israeli Innovation Authority. Folks, Israel is an incredible case study. This year, they invested over $500 million as a state into the local startup scene. And let me tell you what that created. $25 billion of investment outside of Israel into the state of Israel, into these companies. So it's known as Startup Nation, and the consequences of these bold initiatives that, by the way, started because of high immigration and need to create jobs back in the 1990s. So I think one of the recommendations is let's learn from Israel and take some of these best practices and perhaps employ them here in Arkansas. This is a state that's wealthy. There's a lot of capital sitting in the state of Arkansas. What you can see here is the pools of capital between endowments and retirement systems and pension plans. There's over about $80 billion of controlled capital here in the state. And one of our recommendations coming out of the council is let's take some of that capital and direct it here into the state and supporting this vibrant ecosystem. None of this really matters if we don't have the people to actually go out and do the hard work. And so when it comes to workforce development in academia, we spend a lot of time with our council members to think about how do we create the people that are going to go put these great ideas into action. And one of the biggest opportunities we see in the near term is creating an Institute of Advanced Mobility with the basis that is the University of Arkansas, with the incredible research capability, the interest, the excitement, the foundations built from the engineering side. We see that U of A has a wonderful opportunity to become known as a global leader in and around this space. Beyond that, we got to get people before they even get to college. And so as a result of that, we've come with 20 very, very discrete recommendations that will help us from K through 12 in STEM education, but beyond that in the community college system. A lot of times we find that the community college system doesn't get as much attention as it needs, and that's where a lot of the trade skills that are needed to support this ecosystem are going to need to be supported is from the community college world. We need a team that's focusing on this at the government level. And we've got some recommendations in the report of people that will hopefully be in the government that can think about this every morning when they wake up to bring all the different elements and constituents together. And as I mentioned earlier, events, storytelling, really, really important. As the governor mentioned, we co-hosted the UP Summit in Bentonville, Arkansas back in June, which has become the definitive global gathering for the world's leaders in the future of mobility. Over $1 trillion of capital was represented. We had about 3,000 people come out to the community day and really to help instill and inspire people across the world and here locally around the future of mobility. And as we said, rising tides lifts all boats. And so working really closely with our neighboring states, as the governor mentioned earlier, he signed the MOU with Governor Stitt next door in Oklahoma, specifically focused around mobility. And then we've also got this incredible initiative around HALO from the secretary here around hydrogen for Arkansas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma as another area where energy is critically important for the future of mobility. And then lastly, with policy. There are some relatively easy things that the state can do to continue to make this sort of technology, this sort of opportunity accessible to more and more Arkansans. And at the end of the day, the whole purpose of the things we're doing here is to create more economic prosperity and easier modes of modality to the citizens that live here in the state. Space. Space is expected to be a $1 trillion new market by 2040. That's a big, big, big number. The state's already a leader here. And if you look at space sports, it's actually a thing that's not just in Florida. All the states you see here all have certified spaceports, and we have a recommendation that the state explore a feasibility study that can the state of Arkansas have its own spaceport to continue to support an ecosystem around the future of space. We've got 20 specific policy recommendations that go across all modes of the future mobility, from micromobility to include electric bicycles and scooters, to autonomous cars, to electric cars, to flying cars, to drones, to spaceships. Maybe you'll be able to launch a spaceship out of your backyard. We'll see. But with all that, again, I'm so grateful to all of my fellow council members, to the governor, to the great citizens of the state of Arkansas for the opportunity to serve in this capacity, and hopefully we get to put some of these ideas to work. And with that, I'll pass it over to Jen from Walmart.
All right. Good afternoon. Thank you, Governor Hutchinson, for the opportunity to partner with the committee and continue innovating and moving forward. This is a really unique opportunity for our customers, our community, and our business. At Walmart, we realize our customers' needs are changing, retail needs are changing, and we're committed to keeping up with that change and in some ways innovating in those spaces. From autonomous vehicles to drones, we've been actively testing the next generation of mobility solutions across our end-to-end delivery footprint. In 2018, when we started looking for environments that were conducive to this, initially Arkansas was not on that list. Thanks to State Representative McCollum for his work on the bill that opened the door to test these solutions in our own backyard. It's because of the commitment to advanced mobility that we've made some really impressive progress. For example, today we have 4 drone hubs operating in the state of Arkansas that's delivered thousands of packages from across the skies to your doorstep. The big item being Hamburger Helper, which I think is awesome. We've also worked with Gatik, an autonomous middle-mile trucking company, to deliver across our middle mile. We made national news together as the first Class 3 refrigerated box truck that removed the safety driver to autonomously make deliveries. And while this is only the beginning of our journey, we realize that we're not in this alone. Our founder, Sam Walton, said, We're all working together. That's the secret. And through our efforts of this task force, we're hopeful that favorable legislation will continue to enable our test and learn and more innovative solutions for Walmart and for the state of Arkansas. Thank you to Cyrus for your partnership, for including us in this group, and really beginning such an important piece of work. We're excited to keep our customers at the center of this journey and build a bridge with these applications and integrating them into our operations. So with that, I'll hand it to Secretary Preston.
Thank you for those words, and we really appreciate Walmart being a part of this council and all the other companies and businesses who are represented, and obviously my colleagues from the cabinet who are part of it, and public and private sector. Cyrus, you said something that stuck with me. You said that Arkansas is a wealthy state. Too many times we hear that we're a poor state. Well, it's nice to hear from someone in the business world that we're a wealthy state, that we have capital, that we can do these things, and that we can be successful. So it's nice to hear that. Arkansas was built by innovative companies who eventually all became global leaders. You think about Walmart and Tyson and J.B. Hunt or a Systematics, an Axiom, a Dillard's. We were built by these great companies. And I'm confident that these legacy companies will continue to grow and innovate and be world leaders. But through this initiative and through the future of mobility, we'll have new companies who also become world leaders and global leaders. What this report does is it gives state leaders, it gives business leaders an opportunity to come together, to work with the General Assembly, to work with the state, to give us a roadmap of what can be in Arkansas and how we can possibly get there. Obviously, there's a lot of work to get done. There's a lot of things that we need to consider in that, but this is an emerging industry. As Cyrus said, $10 trillion. We have to have a piece of that. We have to have a piece of that $1 trillion space exploration. Why not Arkansas? And I think this report allows us to look at that, figure out what is exactly right for Arkansas and how we move forward on that. By giving us investment strategy, workforce development initiatives, looking at regional and cross-state partnerships, this really is a way for us to leverage these resources and come together, focus on this report, and again, put Arkansas on the forefront to be a leader. So Governor, thank you for having the vision to pull this task force together, to give us an objective to say, you know, even though we're leaving office here soon and the administration's coming to an end, there's an opportunity ahead of us to leave a legacy for everyone else to build on that comes behind us. And this is then the one that we can do that. So thank you for pulling this task force together. Cyrus, thank you for chairing it. You put in a ton of work, and to all the other task force members, we appreciate it. It was good working with so many colleagues and seeing everyone come together to, you know, while everyone has different interests and different businesses, to come together to focus on something that we as a state can all get behind. And with that, I'll turn it over to my good friend and colleague, the Secretary of Energy and Environment, Becky Keogh.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Governor, for this opportunity. Thank you, Cyrus, for your leadership and the other council members. It's been quite exciting to me to see members of the private sector, public sector come together and solve problems and think broadly and think boldly as we look to the future, or even to today, as we see a lot of this happening today. So my role primarily in the conversation is about leading the way and establishing the infrastructure that it will take to keep our mobility working the way we see it and we dream it will. So we've been talking about how to support those goals through our infrastructure investments, and we found the way to success in infrastructure is partnership. And the governor mentioned and I believe Cyrus too, the 3-state partnership that was forged in March around hydrogen. And I know we're going to talk about electrification here because that's a really key part of it, but that 3-state partnership has created a network of hydrogen producers, hydrogen consumers, and connective infrastructure goals around truly delivering a fuel supply and a fuel of choice for certain mobility needs. And so we are excited about the role it could play in industrial processes and transportation and our generation of energy, and even in energy exports outside the boundaries of our states. What we believe our 3 states bring is we are energy states. We've had decades as being the strongest states in the country on energy, and we believe that strength and that workforce that we have, that pipeline of educated and trained workforce, is ready to deliver on that. And we've we believe, and I predict, will be oversubscribed if funding comes our way, and we hope in a few weeks we'll be able to announce that we are receiving the federal funds to move that forward. So we're looking forward to that. But a large part of my time this year has been about making our state EV ready. It's been a priority of the governor's. It's been a priority of, obviously, the federal government, but it's also been a priority of many of the members of the council in their private investments. So we partnered at E&E with our Arkansas Department of Transportation to take advantage of some of the federal funds that have now been made available to create equitable access to EV charging infrastructure, to deploy fast charging across our state, particularly initially on our highway system, but then expanding that across other miles necessary and critical, highway miles and other roads that will take EVs into all communities. We're slated to receive $54 million in the federal funds over 5 years. That leverages out to about $70 million of investment when you consider other private investment at a minimum. And our state plan now that's been approved by the federal government received the highest remarks, being one of the strongest plans that they received, and really delivers on goals not only for the state but for important tourism, agriculture, and consumer needs. So likewise, we've also been taking some available state dollars and other settlement dollars that were brought to the state to expand destination charging ports across our state, being those that we had awarded $660,000 in rebates alone for about 145 destination charging locations. These enable Arkansans and our visitors who come into communities to charge their electric vehicles at business offices, parks, restaurants, grocery stores, hotels, universities, and otherwise. So we applaud the work that the private sector is doing in that as well, but we look forward to continuing to incentivize that with available funds. So as we look forward, I'm happy to say that this investing in these critical partners is really yielding dividends, and we can lay that foundation for safe, reliable, and cost-effective infrastructure in Arkansas. And I'm pleased to turn the mic back to the governor to further the conversation on our exciting mobility announcement.
Thank you, Secretary Keough, and I know that it's important to get to the questions, which we will shortly, but this report is available at ourfuturemobility.org, so it can be downloaded by anyone to read the entirety of the report. I wanted to mention a couple of specific recommendations that caught my attention. First of all, it had a recommendation for the Arkansas Innovation Fund, which would be to take $125 million from our surplus or reserves for this innovation funding to have investment capital for startup businesses in this space. Secondly, it has specific workforce training recommendations for aero defense industry. Dr. Morrissey's here. I saw you thumbing through that. You might have seen that as you were part of the council, but through SAU Tech and Magnolia and Camden to enhance our workforce training for the aero defense industry, to expand FIRST robotics programs in our K through 12 institutions across Arkansas, which is a robotics program. It's a STEM program to excite young people about the future of STEM education and jobs. It has organizational structure recommendations that has a director of science and technology. And of course, the way we think in Arkansas, let's designate somebody that can fulfill this responsibility and build on it. I love a number of the recommendations. One of them I think is important in this day and time is that the council recommended restrictions on China technology and to come up with guidelines on restricting the use of state funds to purchase drones and other emerging technologies controlled by China. And I think that's an important recommendation that needs to be taken seriously by the General Assembly as well. You'll see these recommendations are bold, they're visionary, and they're specific ideas for the future. But you also see that while they're specific, some are aspirational, and we need to be aspirational in our state as we look to the future. And with that, be happy to take any questions.
Governor, you mentioned when this council was originally formed, you look at regulations in the state that can be changed or cut that would help with mobility. So is there recommendations here that on regulations?
Oh, there's specific recommendations in terms of barriers that might be existing to set up the innovation funding and the state's investment. There's obviously, whenever you are recommending space exploration or a spaceport, that takes legislation. And so most of the recommendations pertain to legislative authority. And so that's, I think, what is specifically addressed. When you come across barriers, we'll eliminate those one at a time in terms of regulations.
Where did the idea for this council begin? Seems like they wanted to come up with something like this.
As there are any good idea, as for any good idea, there's many people that contribute to that, and so I'll take some credit, but Cyrus, the leaders in innovation, Secretary Preston, all have been part of this look at the future and what we need to do. So with that, I would like to invite our members of the General Assembly to come up here, where I can not only symbolically, but in real terms, pass this report over to you. And I want to thank each of them for being here today, but also being willing to look at these ideas for the future. So come up here, Austin. And there's the report. That's the official one. You got it. You got an old version. This is the new version.
Ah, we got the new one here. Look at this. A lot of recommendations we need to work on.
Very good.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Okay. You're going to give us a hard copy. We'll give you a hard copy.
I want a hard copy.
Well, they brought my son. Yes. I didn't want to see it. And I was on my sister's.